Do you want to hear my story and learn how depression almost killed me? Then keep listening. Welcome to my channel. I am Fronten'a, and today I am going to read you my audio blog titled My Story: How Depression Almost Killed Me. For the written version of this blog, visit me at my website. The link will be listed below. Now, I wasn't gonna say nothing, but since y'all brought it up, go ahead and make sure you subscribe. Go on now. I'll wait. Whew, child, I thought I was gonna have to tell y'all twice. Oh, and real quick, please give me a thumbs up. It really helps me bring awareness to more people. Okay? Now, let's get into this audio blog. I know you're probably thinking, who the heck is this chick? And what makes her qualified to tell anyone anything about mental health? Well, I'm going to tell you why I am just exactly the person who should be bringing awareness to mental health related illnesses, particularly in the Black community. I am an advocate for mental health treatment, and I will yell it from the mountaintops if that's what it takes to get our community on the path to wellness. When I first realized I was in trouble, I had nowhere to turn for help. Luckily for me, God put me in the hands of a caring, qualified team of mental health professionals who were able to help me get a handle on my depression. And more so, to help me get out of that dark place. See, I was blessed to have been able to ignore the fear of shame that I might have received by seeking help, but many others do not. That same fear that nearly cost me my life is the same fear that keeps others from reaching out before it's too late. So now, I want to share my testimony with others who might be in a similar place that I was in, and encourage you to seek that help. I also want to educate those around you on what real support should look like. African American people have had a very long negative history with mental health and what that means to seek help. And my greatest hope is that I can help you unlearn all those toxic thoughts we as Black people have been holding on to, even to the detriment of our community. Now let me be clear. By me putting my main focus on the Black community, it does not for 1 second mean that I am only advocating for Black people. I advocate for everyone to seek mental health treatment. I am a huge proponent of everyone having better mental health and taking all the necessary steps to achieve that. I strongly push others to get professional care at all costs. For some, that might include medications, and for others, not. But those are decisions you and your team can decide together during your treatment. I am shining a spotlight on African Americans because unlike other races of people, we seem to be the only ones who have allowed years of misinformation, judgment, and shame to be the only reasons so many suffer needlessly, and most times, alone. If we can unlearn those toxic thoughts and start to build a better relationship with mental health, we can increase the number of people seeking help and get the number of suicides down. So, here is my story. I was first diagnosed with major depressive disorder at the age of 27. I was pregnant with my third child, a boy, and I was doing it all alone. We will come back to this in a bit, but I want to take you all the way back to the very beginning. As I stated, to look back at all the times I seemed to be struggling emotionally but didn't know why, it makes me so sad. Sad to know that I was dealing with depression and I had no support in that. I would tell people that I was down, or that I couldn't seem to stop crying, or wishing I could just, escape my life. But I was either told, girl, we're going to just take you on down to the pastor and let the pastor pray over you. Or, girl, you got to get over that. People were, and still are, so quick to tell you, I don't let things get to me. As if depression is a matter of mind over matter. Now, before anyone starts asking, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with leaning on God? Let me tell you right now, there is absolutely nothing wrong with using God as part of your treatment. But you heard me, right? As part of your treatment. The problem begins when we pray for a healing and then do nothing else. See, this is one of the first bits of misinformation I want to destroy. Now, I am a Christian, and I know that my God can heal anything. But I also know that depression is a medical condition that, when severe enough, can cause death and has to be treated with the same urgency as any other terminal illness. Major depressive disorder is not something you can simply just will yourself out of. I am not a doctor, so I am not going to go into depth on the medical side, but I will, however, leave some links in the description box should you want to get more information for yourself. I am, however, going to speak on what my experience was and what living with untreated major depressive disorder looked like for me. So, as I mentioned, I went most of my teenage years unknowingly battling this disease for a very long time, and what's more, completely alone. Now, fast forward a bit to now, my late teens. I was married. Yes, as a teenager, I was married just 4 days after my 18th birthday, and soon thereafter, I gave birth to my first son. I was very excited to be having a baby. I know I was young, but despite that, I was the oldest child to a single mother who had 9 children, so I felt that I was prepared. At least as prepared as any other 18-year-old mom could be. As I'm sure you can imagine, I had a ton of responsibility in my childhood home, and that caused me to grow up very fast. Older people would often tell me that I had an old soul, which basically just means that I was mature beyond my years, also known as mature for my age. I didn't fear becoming a mother, and despite my age, I actually was pretty well prepared. I was happily married and living on my own, so I thought, this is going to be a walk in the park. But yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't the new responsibilities or the lack of sleep. It wasn't that my then husband wasn't supportive enough, and sometimes he wasn't, but it wasn't any of that. It was the fact that I had this beautiful, chocolate, curly-haired baby boy that I initially didn't feel attached to. I loved this baby boy more than anything or anyone I had ever loved before. But all the love in the world couldn't get me attached to my baby. And I felt this extreme guilt over that. I was sobbing all the time and completely uninterested in just about everything. I was tired, as a new mom would be, but this was a different kind of tiredness. It wasn't even so much as being tired physically, but it was this foreign, different kind of exhaustion that I had never felt. It wasn't like I was sleepy as much as I was drained. I went from this cute little housewife who woke up all early in the morning and made my husband breakfast before he left for work to a shell of my former self that no longer existed. Before giving birth, I was this super organized, Pinterest-y kind of person who kept an immaculate home. But after my son was born, I just couldn't seem to muster the energy that I needed to do pretty much anything. My home was always a mess. I wasn't doing all the little things that I used to do for my husband, and believe you me, he made sure to let me know every chance he got. I started to believe that I was just lazy, or well, I don't know, like I didn't have any motivation. But the problem is I didn't know why. This went on for quite a while, and it was kind of that start to where my marriage was becoming strained. I felt so irritated with myself that I wasn't able to do the things I once did. I was embarrassed to talk to anyone about it because I just thought I was lazy. And who wants to tell someone, I don't get out of bed most days due to my laziness? I had no interest in being intimate with my husband, and more than likely, this was the reason he really wasn't coming home much anymore. Eventually, we separated, got back together, had another son, and then got divorced. Over the years, those bad days would come and go, and over time, I became myself again. But it wasn't until 2007 that I finally had the answers to my years-long battle with this sudden sadness and lack of energy. I finally knew why I was disinterested in pretty much everything. And the list goes on and on of symptoms that finally made sense. Now, remember earlier I mentioned that I would come back to the part where I was 27 and a single mother to 2 young boys? Well, we're at that point in my story now. I was financially extremely stable, but I was in the darkest place of my life up until that point. I was living my best mid to late 20s life. I had this amazing job at JP Morgan Chase. Child, I was a foreclosure analyst. I had millions of dollars in my portfolio that I was responsible for. And for the first time in my adult life, I was making enough money to not stress over bills. So why was I so down? I had beautiful children, a beautiful home, and a brand new baby on the way. So why was I so down? Now, I did mention I was pregnant and doing it all alone, right? So I thought what I was feeling was just as a result of this new journey that I was on alone. I didn't have anyone to help me through the morning sickness. I didn't have anybody there to do the whole doctor's appointment thing with me. You know, listening to the heartbeat and all. When it was time to find out if I was having a boy or a girl, instead of the father of my child being there at my side, it was 2 of my girlfriends that I shared that moment with. I didn't even want a baby shower because I was ashamed of being pregnant and alone. Now, before I go on, this is not about the father. He is very active in our son's life today, And he gave me a very heartfelt apology once all was said and done. I have no hard feelings or issues with him in any way. This story is literally about how I finally discovered what was wrong and got the help that saved my life. So, back to the story. The defining moment was when I went on my hospital tour to tour the hospital I was planning to give birth at. So here I am, 7 or 8 months pregnant, standing in the waiting area of the lobby for the other mothers to come so we could start, the tour as a group. But it wasn't just the mothers. It was the fathers too. And for some reason, this was the moment that broke me. As we're walking the halls and nodding our heads at the tour guide as he pointed out, this one thing and then the next thing, I was having a rough time even being present in the tour because I was doing everything in my power, to fight back tears. Watching these husbands carefully guide their wives along the tour, so supportive and so present, was just a reminder to me that I was in this thing alone. And as the tour was concluding and he was giving us instructions on the procedures should we go into labor during the night, all of my best efforts were not going to hold those tears in for another moment. The gentleman giving us the tour said, "Okay, husbands, you can park in the no parking zone for 30 minutes to give yourself some time to get your wives up to labor and delivery. And then go back to your car and move it right away. Otherwise, it will be towed." And this is the moment that I broke down and the floodgates were open. I interrupted the tour guide to ask where I was going to be able to park, because I was doing this alone and more than likely I would be driving myself to the hospital. The look on the faces of not only the tour guide, but also the husbands spoke a million words. The tour guide had this puzzled look on his face. And then he said, I don't know. You could tell he was confused as to why a woman in labor would be driving herself to the hospital. And just before he gave me any real response, one of the husbands said, "Okay, hold on. I'm sorry. I don't mean to pry, but what makes you think you can safely make it to the hospital in labor?" I just stood there, tears running down my face. And before I could answer, one of the other husbands said, "Nope, not happening. I'm going to give you my number and you call me when you go into labor." He then turns to his wife and asks her for a piece of paper to write his number down on. And as he is looking for that piece of paper, the other fathers made the same offer. Without me saying a word, they were coordinating a whole be-on-call schedule so at least somebody would be available and able to come and get me safely to the hospital. Y'all, this is the point where I began ugly crying. I mean hysterical, uncontrollable crying. I was crying because I was alone on this journey. I was crying because these perfect strangers were being so kind to a person they didn't even know. I was crying because I was so disappointed in myself to be a single unwed mother. I was crying because I was embarrassed to be the only black mother on this tour and the only single one as well. I was just crying. As I'm walking in this dark parking garage heading back to my car, I felt like this darkness in the parking garage spoke to exactly what I was feeling inside. Darkness. Pure and complete darkness. As I got back into my car, I cried harder than I have ever cried before. I was crying so hard that my eyes were blurry. And because of that, now my vision was blurry. I got on the freeway heading in the opposite direction of home by mistake. But instead of exiting the freeway and going the right direction, I just drove for about an hour in the wrong direction and decided I was going to drive as far as I could on whatever gas I had in my tank, find a hotel, and take my life. By this time, I was in San Clemente, about 2 hours or so from home. My gas was getting low, so I stopped at some random Walmart with the intention to buy a bunch of different medications, check into the nearest hotel, and just stop my hurting. Now I'm wandering around this Walmart looking for the medication aisle, and just as I think I found it, my baby boy starts kicking away. I was in such a dark fog of just pure desperation that I had not even considered that ending my life would also end his. And it was crazy because I couldn't remember feeling him kicking or moving at all up until this point. But when I am pretty much at the tail end of this plan, God reminded me that I was carrying life. And even if I couldn't fight another day for my own life, I had to fight another day for his. I, of course, did not go through with my plan. I stopped at the McDonald's that was inside the Walmart, had a bite to eat, and instead of driving the long drive back to San Diego, I took a shortcut and went to my mom's house. She only lived about 45-50 minutes from where I was, and I felt like I just didn't trust myself enough to be alone at that moment. While I was at her house, I called the 24-hour access and crisis line and was connected with a therapist very quickly. She was also pregnant, about a month or so ahead of me, which I liked because I felt like she understood my plight in more ways than one. While in treatment with this psychologist, she diagnosed me with major depressive disorder and anxiety. I met with her weekly, and she referred me to a psychiatrist to go over pregnancy-safe medication options. During therapy, she uncovered for me all of those years battling this unknown case of the Debbie Downers with a side of laziness to actually be depression. And remember when I told y'all that I was having issues connecting to my first son? Y'all remember that, right? Well, that turns out it was a little thing called postpartum depression. Everything I had gone through and suffered with for so many years had a diagnosis and a treatment plan. And had I spoken to a doctor, I might have been able to get on the road to recovery much sooner. Well, today I am remarried with now 5 kids. And the baby I was carrying when I nearly lost my battle is now a handsome 14-year-old, attitude-filled, typical teenager that I want to punch in the face pretty much daily. That ending could have been very different if I didn't seek help. Now, unfortunately, my son also has had his own battle with both depression and anxiety. But thankfully, we were able to get him in treatment early on, and he still fights his battle to this day. So, I say all that to say, it is okay to not be okay. It is okay to need assistance in pulling yourself out of the hole. It is okay to be scared. But you can get on the road to recovery and learn new ways of coping with depression. I am still dealing with my depression, and there is a possibility that I might be for the rest of my life. But I am consistent in therapy and consistent in taking medications that help me tremendously. That being said, that is the reason this chick is qualified to advocate for therapy for treatment and for you. I want you to know that you don't have to suffer anymore. You can feel better and get better. Depression is treatable. Treatment saved my life, and it can save yours as well. I am here for you and can help you find care in your area. You got this. No, actually, we got this. You don't have to struggle anymore. Seek help immediately. I left some helpful tips and links in the description box below. Please consider becoming a part of my village. I think you'll like it here. Until next time. I see him now. Just because you tall, don't try to make us feel weird, bro. Just gumpy. He ain't grew into that body yet. What up, yo? Congratulations, boo.
Thank you. Now you can buy lunch, breakfast.
I am.
Yeah.
Keep it walking. Keep it walking.
I promise you.
Come on, because Miss Darcy said we got to get the hell out of here. She said,
Coach said don't leave yet.
She said, I don't mean to be rude. I don't mean to be rude. But y'all got to get up out of here.
We gotta wait. I mean, Coach told me to wait. So
Wait for what?
He wants to say something, but he got to do something.
He can say something to me over the phone. They got another class coming
He told
in.
me to wait.
Well, you can wait. Me and Devin is out of here.
All right.